Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα σας. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Η Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, η Τεχνόπολη Θεσσαλονίκης και το Ερευνητικό Κέντρο CERN διοργανώνουν Επιχειρηματικό Διαδικτυακό Συνέδριο με στόχο την ανάπτυξη επιχειρηματικών σχέσεων του οργανισμού με επιχειρήσεις της Περιφέρειας Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας. Να πούμε όμως και μερικά πράγματα στα αγγλικά για το CERN. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, known as CERN, is a European research organization that operates the largest particle physics laboratory in the world. Established in 1954, the organization is based in the northwest suburb of Geneva on the Franco-Swiss border and has 23 member states. Greece, of course, is a founding member. The CERN in 2019 had 2,660 scientific, technical, and administrative staff members and hosted about 12,400 users from institutions in more than 70 countries. Κύριος στόχος μας της σημερινής συνάντησης, κυρίες και κύριοι, είναι οι επιχειρήσεις της Περιφέρειας Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας να γνωρίσουν το μέγεθος και τις ανάγκες του CERN και αντίστοιχα τα στελέχη του CERN να συναντήσουν δυναμικές επιχειρήσεις της Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας και φυσικά να δημιουργηθούν συνεργασίες. Η συνάντηση στο πρώτο μέρος της θα επικεντρωθεί στις δυνατότητες συνεργασίας των επιχειρήσεων της Περιφέρειας Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας με το CERN, είτε ως προμηθευτές προϊόντων και υπηρεσιών, είτε ως αποδέκτες μεταφοράς τεχνογνωσίας, κάτι το οποίο είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό. Και φυσικά στο δεύτερο μέρος θα παρουσιαστούν εξωστρεφείς επιχειρήσεις. Πολύ σημαντικό είναι ότι μετά από όλη αυτή την εκδήλωση, η Τεχνόπολη θα συγκεντρώσει τις παρουσιάσεις από αρκετές επιχειρήσεις και θα τις προωθήσει στα στελέχη προμηθειών του οργανισμού και τις διευθύνσεις τους. Today, we are going to focus, ladies and gentlemen, on how to find ways of cooperation between businesses on northern Greece and CERN. Something that is, of course, very important for all of us and for the economy of our country. And without further ado, let's start with a welcome of the Director for International Relations of CERN, Mrs. Charlotte Dinberg-Warakaule. Mrs. Warakaule, welcome, and thank you very much that you honor us today with your presence.
Thank you very much, Rini. Thank you for the warm welcome. Kalispera sas. A very warm welcome to everybody to this online event doing business with CERN. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to welcome all of you on behalf of CERN management and to see so many friends here with us today. And of course, a very special welcome and thank you to Governor Tzitzikostas and of course to President Tsikas, who are both strong and long-standing friends of CERN. As we already heard in the introduction, Greece was a founding member of CERN, one of only 12 at the time, and has been with the organization ever since. So there's a very particular and very close relationship between CERN and Greece. And within this, we also enjoy a very close and very special relationship with the region of Central Macedonia. It was during a visit to CERN already in 2017 by the governor that CERN and the region of Central Macedonia signed a declaration of intent to collaborate. And quite a number of interesting collaborations have followed from that declaration at the time. Today's meeting and today's outreach is really a follow-up to a very successful visit by the governor to CERN in 2019 with representatives of several companies from the region of Central Macedonia. And today, CERN, together with the region and also Technopoulos Thessaloniki, are organizing this event in order to sensitize and to raise awareness also of the business opportunities and the partnership opportunities there are with CERN. We greatly appreciate that so many of you have taken up this invitation, even if we're online today. During the first part of the meeting, you will hear much more about the nuts and bolts of doing business with CERN and the opportunities also when it comes to knowledge transfer. This, of course, will be followed by presentations also by the other stakeholders and the partners in this event today, and of course also presentations by the industries themselves. And I really want to thank all of the speakers for their commitment and for their input and for sharing their ideas today. We're actually at a very exciting time for CERN and also for opportunities for industry to partner with CERN. We're in the process of upgrading our flagship collider, the Large Hadron Collider, which is our flagship and is the largest scientific instrument in the world. And at the same time, we are looking at what the next big project at CERN could look like. So we're talking about physics opportunities that reach until the end of the century, effectively. And across the board, there are opportunities for industry involvement and for working together in partnership. So we really appreciate that you're here today to learn more about these opportunities, to make connections. And we hope, of course, that this online introduction and this online event today will be followed when conditions allow, concerning the pandemic, that there will be a possibility for an online visit, for an in-person visit to CERN, so that we can strengthen these connections. So thank you again to the organizers, to everybody who has been part of bringing the event together today, and again to the governor and to the president for being with us today. It's very, very important to us, and I hope you have a very enriching afternoon and it really opens new opportunities for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very welcome address and the introduction for all this. It's really very nice, and we're very excited that we have all these opportunities with you, and we can grow more and have some wonderful cooperation with CERN. And very important factor, of course, of the development relations between Northern Greece and CERN is the president of Technopoli Thessaloniki, Mr. Anastasios Zikas, who will be referring today to the relationship of both organizations. Mr. Zikas, President of Technopoli Thessaloniki, the floor is yours.
Καλησπέρα. Ευχαριστώ ευχαριστώ τη Live Media. Hello from Thessaloniki. Hello to everybody from Technopolis, from the first and the biggest technology park in Greece. First, I would like to thank our friends in CERN, because we have many friends in CERN, especially Mrs. Charlotte Varakoule, Mr. Emmanuel Tesmelis, and Mr. Giovanni Anelli for helping us to organize this meeting. Also, I would like to thank the governor, Mr. Apostolos Zikostas, for sharing with us his vision to transform the city of Thessaloniki to an international technology hub. My thanks also to Mr. Georgos Konstantopoulos, the president of the Association of Exporters of Northern Greece, and to Mr. Georgiou, general manager of the Association of Greek Industries. Thank you all for being with us. I would like to give just a roadmap of our collaboration with CERN. As you know, we established this technology park before 10 years. And from 2014, we began to collaborate with CERN. We signed an agreement in 2014 in order to promote CERN technologies in Greece. And after this, we have organized 2 business missions in 2017 and in 2019 in order to promote a better collaboration between Greek companies and CERN. And in this way, we will be committed in order to help Greek companies to collaborate with CERN and to exchange ideas, products, and services. So we are here in order to promote this relationship, and in order to be part of this family, let's say, of this technology family, in which CERN is our leader, is our guide. So, once more, ευχαριστώ πολύ για τη συμμετοχή και τις ελληνικές εταιρείες. Για μας είναι πολύ σημαντικό να βελτιώσουμε τη συμμετοχή των ελληνικών εταιριών στις προμήθειες του CERN. Σε αυτή την κατεύθυνση είμαστε μαζί με την Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας. Όπως είπα προηγουμένως, Έχουμε κάνει 2 επιχειρηματικές αποστολές με την παρουσία του Περιφερειάρχη, όπου υπογράφηκε και ένα μνημόνιο συνεργασίας. Νομίζω είναι το μοναδικό ανάμεσα σε περιφέρεια και στο CERN. Και σε αυτή την κατεύθυνση η Τεχνόπολη θέλουμε τα επόμενα χρόνια να παίξει ακόμη σημαντικότερο ρόλο, μέχρι ότου οι ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις να γίνουν ένα σημαντικό ποσοστό στις προμήθειες του CERN. Ευχαριστώ όλους για τη συμμετοχή σας. Αυτό που μόνο θα ήθελα να πω είναι ότι από τις προηγούμενες επιχειρηματικές αποστολές που έχουμε κάνει μαζί με την Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, ήδη υπάρχουν εταιρείες που έχουν βελτιώσει την σχέση τους όσον αφορά τις προμήθειες, εννοώ, με το CERN. Άρα αυτό είναι πάρα πολύ σημαντικό. Έτσι, σιγά-σιγά χτίζουμε μια πολύ σημαντική σχέση ανάμεσα στις ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις και στις ομάδες που ασχολούνται με τις προμήθειες και τη μεταφορά τεχνολογίας του CERN. Thank you once more, and Mr. Apostolos Tzitzikostas, Mr. Governor, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, κύριε Τζίκα. Και φυσικά, όπως προλογίσατε κι εσείς, είναι κοντά μας ο Περιφερειάρχης Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, ο κύριος Απόστολος Τzitzikostas, the Governor of Central Macedonia. He's with us together. Κύριε Περιφερειάρχα, καλώς ήρθατε. Πραγματικά, από την πρώτη στιγμή υποστηρίξατε πολύ σταθερά αυτή τη συνεργασία μεταξύ του CERN και της Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, των επιχειρήσεων της Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, δίνοντας με αυτόν τον τρόπο νέες προοπτικές ανάπτυξης, και θέλουμε πάρα πολύ να ακούσουμε όλη αυτή τη διαδικασία και πόσο πλέον από εδώ και πέρα μπορούμε να το αναπτύξουμε ακόμη περισσότερο.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ, Ειρήνη μου, και ευχαριστώ τη Live Media που για ακόμη μια φορά δείχνει πόσο μπροστά είναι στην διοργάνωση τέτοιων πολύ σημαντικών ημερίδων, συνεδρίων και εκδηλώσεων. Charlotte, thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for your great work and the fantastic collaboration that we have all these years. It is true that we have built up a very strong relationship between Central Macedonia and CERN, and I am certain that this very good and very strong collaboration that we have will continue on in the years to come. I know you know, and soon everyone will know that we have great projects in our mind for CERN in Thessaloniki. I would say that Thessaloniki loves CERN and CERN loves Thessaloniki, and this will be depicted in the near future. We are working towards this direction, so I really want to thank you for this work, as well as Manolis, of course, and all of the team who has been working towards increasing the role of Greece and Central Macedonia, more specifically in CERN. Να καλωσορίσω και όλους εσάς σε αυτό το επιχειρηματικό συνέδριο. Θα συζητήσουμε για τις επιχειρήσεις της Περιφέρειας Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας που συνεργάζονται με το CERN, και να ευχαριστήσω θερμά τους υποστηρικτές του συνεδρίου, χάρη στους οποίους έγινε δυνατή αυτή η σημερινή σημαντική μέρα, το Σύνδεσμο Βιομηχανιών Ελλάδος, το Σύνδεσμο Εξαγωγέων Βορείου Ελλάδας και φυσικά την Τεχνόπολη, το ICT Business Park, τόσο για τη συνδιοργάνωση όσο και για την εξαιρετική στενή συνεργασία μας όλα αυτά τα χρόνια, που είχε μεταξύ πολλών άλλων ως αποτέλεσμα τη σημαντική αυτή συμφωνία μεταξύ της Περιφέρειας και του κορυφαίου αυτού ερευνητικού οργανισμού. Κυρίες και κύριοι, από τον Ιανουάριο του 2017, με την υπογραφή του Συμφώνου Συνεργασίας που είχαμε στη Γενέβη, η Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας αποτελεί, και είναι τιμή μας αυτό, τον έναν από τους συνολικά 4 αυτοδιοικητικούς φορείς παγκοσμίως που συνεργάζεται απευθείας με το CERN. Υπογράφοντας εκείνο το σύμφωνο τότε, που μεταξύ άλλων προβλέπει τη συμμετοχή όλων των επιχειρήσεων που το επιθυμούν στους διαγωνισμούς προμηθειών του CERN, ως διοίκηση της Περιφέρειας ανοίξαμε νέους δρόμους για την επιχειρηματικότητα της περιοχής μας, για τις επιχειρήσεις του τόπου μας, δίνοντας ασφαλώς διεθνή προοπτική. Το CERN, ως ζωντανός οργανισμός 13.000 στελεχών, εκτός από τον τεχνολογικό εξοπλισμό, έχει και σημαντικές ανάγκες σε προμήθειες προϊόντων και υπηρεσιών, όπως προφανώς μηχανολογικό, ηλεκτρολογικό εξοπλισμό, κατασκευές κτηρίων, μεγαλοκατασκευές, αποθήκευση ενέργειας, μελέτες. Από την πρώτη λοιπόν στιγμή, ο στόχος μας ήταν ξεκάθαρος. Και γι' αυτό φροντίσαμε στο σύμφωνο αυτό συνεργασίας να προβλέπεται η διευκόλυνση των επιχειρήσεων στη συμμετοχή τους στους διαγωνισμούς του CERN. Να ανοίξουμε μια μεγάλη αγορά για τις επιχειρήσεις μας, για να μπορέσουν να γίνουν προμηθευτές του CERN και ταυτόχρονα να τους δώσουμε την ευκαιρία για πρόσβαση σε νέες τεχνολογίες, στην καινοτομία, στην έρευνα, στην απόκτηση, με λίγα λόγια, μοναδικής τεχνογνωσίας. Και αυτό πέρα από τις επιχειρήσεις εκτείνεται και στα ακαδημαϊκά ιδρύματα της περιφέρειας, σύμφωνα με το σύμφωνο που υπογράψαμε, αλλά και προβλέπεται και η δυνατότητα οι φοιτητές μας να συμμετέχουν σε σεμινάρια στη Γενέβη. Αυτά τα 5 χρόνια, από το 2017 που υπογράψαμε, η Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας ανέλαβε μια σειρά από πρωτοβουλίες προκειμένου αυτή η ευκαιρία που ανοίξαμε τότε να αξιοποιηθεί. Δώσαμε λοιπόν την ευκαιρία σε ερευνητικούς οργανισμούς να συνεργαστούν με το CERN σε πολλά επίπεδα. Εκτός από το ότι φέραμε το CERN στους φοιτητές μας, ανοίγοντας νέους ορίζοντες και προοπτικές στο σπουδαίο ανθρώπινο δυναμικό του τόπου μας, οργανώσαμε την πρώτη μας επιχειρηματική αποστολή το 19, σε συνεργασία φυσικά με την Τεχνόπολη και με τη συμμετοχή επιχειρηματικών φορέων και εκπροσωπών εταιριών διάφορων επιχειρήσεων του τόπου μας. Ήταν μια αποστολή που πραγματοποιήθηκε με πολύ μεγάλη επιτυχία, άνοιξε το δρόμο για τη σύναψη συνεργασιών. Ήδη 4 σημαντικές επιχειρήσεις της περιοχής μας ανέπτυξαν εμπορικές σχέσεις με το CERN, επέκτηναν τους επιχειρηματικούς τους ορίζοντες. Και αυτό ακριβώς, αυτή την προσπάθεια, συνεχίζουμε και σήμερα με τη διοργάνωση αυτού του συνεδρίου. Έτσι ώστε ακόμη περισσότερες δυναμικές επιχειρήσεις του τόπου μας, από όλους τους επιχειρηματικούς κλάδους, να αξιοποιήσουν αυτή τη σημαντική ευκαιρία εξωστρέφειας και να συμμετέχουν στους διαγωνισμούς του CERN. Εμείς, ως διοίκηση της Περιφέρειας Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, πιστεύουμε πραγματικά στις τεράστιες δυνατότητες των επιχειρήσεων του τόπου μας και στις ικανότητες του ανθρώπινου κεφαλαίου μας. Γι' αυτό και δίνουμε καθημερινά αγώνα για να μετατρέψουμε αυτές τις μεγάλες ευκαιρίες σε ανταγωνιστικό πλεονέκτημα για τον τόπο μας. Και θα τα καταφέρουμε, να είστε σίγουροι. Στόχος μας είναι να γίνει η καινοτομία ο τρίτος βασικός πυλώνας της οικονομίας της Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, μαζί με τον τουρισμό και τον πρωτογενή τομέα, που ήδη είναι. Και θέλουμε να ανοίξουμε μια ισχυρή προοπτική ανάπτυξης για τις τοπικές μας επιχειρήσεις, να τους δώσουμε τη δυνατότητα να γίνουν ακόμη πιο εξωστρεφείς και ανταγωνιστικές, γιατί με τη σειρά τους θα δημιουργήσουν και νέες θέσεις εργασίας. Και τι θέσεις εργασίας? Θέσεις εργασίας υψηλών προσόντων και δεξιοτήτων, οι οποίες θα μπορέσουν να απορροφήσουν νέους ανθρώπους, κλείνοντας με έναν τρόπο μία από τις μεγαλύτερες πληγές της χώρας και του τόπου μας τα τελευταία χρόνια, το brain drain. Τη φυγή δηλαδή των ανθρώπων με υψηλές δεξιότητες και ικανότητες στο εξωτερικό. Λοιπόν, κατά τη γνώμη μου, η εποχή που η Μακεδονία και η Βόρεια Ελλάδα έβλεπε τις ευκαιρίες να περνούν και να φεύγουν, ανήκει οριστικά στο παρελθόν. Τώρα πια έχουμε την ομάδα, έχουμε τους ανθρώπους, έχουμε την καλή συνεργασία με όλους τους φορείς και διεκδικούμε και κερδίζουμε για τον τόπο μας. Και θέλω να το γνωρίζετε καλά, κυρίες και κύριοι, αυτό. Οι επιχειρήσεις, όλοι εσείς έχετε ένα σύμμαχο που παλεύει για σας. Όχι στα λόγια, αλλά με πράξεις. Και θα συνεχίσουμε να παλεύουμε με όλες μας τις δυνάμεις, με όλα μας τα μέσα, ώστε βγαίνοντας από την πανδημία να μπούμε γρήγορα στην επόμενη μέρα της ανάκαμψης και να χτίσουμε όλοι μαζί την Κεντρική Μακεδονία του 2030. Μια περιφέρεια σύγχρονη, έξυπνη, πράσινη και ανθρώπινη. Αυτό είναι το όραμά μας και αυτό υπηρετούμε. Θέλω για ακόμη μια φορά λοιπόν να ευχαριστήσω όλους εσάς που συμμετέχετε σήμερα, πιστεύοντας και στηρίζοντας αυτή τη σημαντική προσπάθεια που κάνουμε, και βέβαια να ευχαριστήσω τον Τάσο Τζίκα, γιατί πραγματικά έχει δώσει όλες του τις δυνάμεις στην προσπάθεια να φέρουμε πιο κοντά την Κεντρική Μακεδονία στο CERN, και τολμώ να πω ότι σε λίγο καιρό από τώρα όταν θα είμαστε έτοιμοι και σε ευχάριστη θέση να ανακοινώσουμε ακόμη περισσότερα πράγματα που θα αφορούν στη συνεργασία Θεσσαλονίκης και Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας με το CERN. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ για το χρόνο σας, για το ότι είστε εδώ και για το ότι στηρίζετε αυτή τη σημαντική προσπάθεια. Προχωράμε. Ευχαριστώ.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, κύριε Περιφερειάρχα, και πραγματικά κρατάμε το μήνυμα ότι βρίσκεστε κοντά και στηρίζετε τις επιχειρήσεις. Είναι πολύ σημαντικό αυτό και ευχόμαστε να μπορέσουμε κάποια στιγμή στο σύντομο κοντινό μέλλον και διαζώσεις να γίνουν οι συναντήσεις, έτσι ώστε να μπορέσουν οι επιχειρήσεις να συνάψουν συνεργασίες ως προμηθευτές του CERN. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ και προχωράμε, κυρίες και κύριοι. A great supporter of this effort is Mr. Emmanuel Tsesmelis, Head of Associate and Non-Member State Relations of CERN. He will present us the organization. Introduction to CERN. Mr. Tsesmelis, we can hear you. Βγάλουμε να του πω το μικρόφωνο.
Mute. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. Yeah. So it's Kalispera Sas. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today and to introduce CERN. Indeed, I'd like to say a warm thank you to the Governor, Mr. Digikostas, and also to Mr. Dzikas for all their support and warm words that we heard today regarding CERN and the region of Central Macedonia. And what I want to do is take the opportunity to introduce CERN and then to set the framework of what we do in the organization. So there are 4 pillars which underpin CERN's mission, and indeed these 4 pillars are the 4 elements which we'll be focusing on in today's meeting. There is, of course, the core mission of fundamental research, which is supported by technology and innovation, and brings together worldwide collaboration for scientists and engineers and technicians. And of course, all that is underpinned by the next generation through education and training programs. So in all those 4 areas, there are opportunities for cooperation and collaboration. So the big picture of what we do at CERN is really to understand the fundamental structure of the universe, and going all the way back to the beginnings of time, namely a fraction of a second after the time of the Big Bang, which was about 13.8 billion years ago. So the purpose is, through our accelerated beams, we try to reproduce the conditions of energy and matter at that very epoch of time, and to study it in a controlled fashion through the experiments which reproduce those conditions. And indeed, our flagship program is the Large Hadron Collider, and as you see here, this is an aerial shot of the footprint of the LHC, the 27-kilometer ring which you see there, straddling the Geneva, the Swiss-French border. And around, this is a 27-kilometer ring, 100 meters underground, and there are 4 collision points where the circulating beams of protons, mostly, traveling close to the speed of light, collide. And at those 4 collision points, we have set up these very large detectors, ATLAS, CMS, ALICE, and LHCb, which allow the physics community and the physics collaborations to study those conditions at the very outset of time, of just a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. So you can see here the size of these detectors. These are very large and complex detectors installed 100 meters underground inside the LHC infrastructure. And I should say that Greece participates in 3 of these big experiments, in ALICE, ATLAS, and the CMS experiment. So the Large Hadron Collider is, the fundamental element of it is the high technology equipment which has been required to be developed over a period of decades of time through R&D projects, bringing together not only the scientific community, but working in partnership with industry from around the world. And I think that is, it shows you a cartoon of one of these high field superconducting magnets, of which the latest in technology and superconductivity had to be developed to be able to enable this, the installation of these elements inside the LHC ring tunnel. So, in addition to the experiments and to the particle accelerator, the LHC, the third big component of doing an experimental physics program at the LHC is the computing. And here I show you the worldwide LHC computing grid infrastructure, which actually brings together about 1 million processing cores in about 106 to 170 data centers distributed around more than 40 countries. And this brings together about 1,000 petabytes of data from the LHC, which is stored worldwide. And of course, access to all this data from the experimental collaborations enables the physicists, no matter where they are situated, to access the data for the analysis of the physics which is required. So this model of distributed computing is pioneering, was developed in the 1990s by CERN. And indeed, this has grown to what's called today commercially cloud computing. And indeed, I bring this up because I understand that there are many companies in ICT which are participating in today's event. So what happens looking forward? The LHC has been running now for about 10 years, a decade, with the discovery of the Higgs boson in 2012. It marked its place in history, I would say, in the physics adventure. Going forward, we are in the process now of upgrading the high luminosity LHC. And indeed, that is the next major project of CERN, where the LHC itself will provide collisions 10 times more than what are available today. So there is a greater potential for more exciting physics for the next years to come, until I expect until the end of the 2030s or early 2040s, that this research infrastructure will continue running. And as you can see there, the technical elements which need to be put into place to make this a success is very important. And indeed, this happens together with industrial partners. And looking further ahead, beyond the LHC and its high luminosity upgrade, Europe has updated its roadmap last year of possibilities of beyond high luminosity LHC. And within that roadmap, one of the key elements which featured is the study of a future circular collider, which is shown here. This is would be a new research infrastructure based on a 100-kilometer circumference ring in the Geneva area, and you can see that ring, the footprint of that ring there, in relation to the footprint of the LHC. This will enable physics to continue at the highest and record intensities and luminosities all the way up to the end of the century. And I guess you can well imagine the number of opportunities open to not only the scientific community, but also to firms and industry to participate in this new project once it's approved, hopefully later in the decade. So moving to the international cooperation, as was mentioned earlier, CERN was founded in 1954 by 12 European member states, of which Greece is proudly one of those founding members. Today, the organization has grown to 23 member states, not exclusively European, but we have opened the doors to non-European countries, for example, Israel. And we have also introduced about 10 years ago the status of associate member, either regular or in the process of transitioning to full member. And we have bilateral agreements at the highest level between governments of more than 50 countries and CERN, which allows their scientific communities to participate in our programs. We have, as of the end of last year, on our payrolls, we have more than 2,600 staff, about 750 postdoctoral fellows, and very importantly, about 11,500 scientific users coming from several hundred universities from around the world. And indeed, if you see whether it is a laboratory for people coming from around the world, it's a great geographical and cultural diversity is shown here at CERN, and we have scientific users of more than 110 nationalities, of which about a quarter are female. In terms of Greece, in this scientific user base, there's about 140 scientific users from based in institutes and universities in Greece, which actually collaborate in one of our programs, and in particularly in the Large Hadron Collider. Also for Greece, these are quite impressive numbers. At the end of last year, we've had 211 users of Greek nationality. That means there is a significant diaspora of Greek nationals working outside the country. And indeed, this is what Mr. Dizikostas referred to earlier, the brain drain and the diaspora of this Greek scientific community. We have 52 staff of Greek nationality on the payroll of CERN, 56 postdoctoral fellows, and 34 doctoral, technical, and administrative students working with us as personnel in the CERN personnel. Moving to innovation and technology, indeed, we'll hear a lot about this a bit later on. Just to remind you that CERN is the birthplace of the World Wide Web more than 30 years ago now. But there are many more examples, which I won't go into, but many more examples which are listed there, which you can find opportunities to transfer that technology and to collaborate in developing that technology together with the experts at CERN. One of the key innovation areas at CERN is in the area of medicine and healthcare, providing the next generation accelerators to cure cancer, to providing the next generation sensors and electronics for PET scanners, for doing our first 3D color X-ray imaging based on pixel detectors developed for the LHC experiments initially, and most recently producing innovative radioisotopes for nuclear medicine research. So these are 4 pillars of medicine and healthcare, very important to society, which have some work going on here at CERN to develop the next generation of those technologies. And I'll finish by saying a few words about the next generation of physicists, engineers, and technicians. Of course, this is very much an industrial event that we're organizing today. But as the governor mentioned earlier, we have collaborations with the universities and other academic institutions in Greece, and in particular in Central Macedonia. I just want to mention that we have more than 3,000 PhD students at any one time registered at CERN, and of which about 600 PhD theses are completed each year. And of course, the degrees are conferred by the home universities of the students. We run summer student programs of several hundred for undergraduates every year, and we have many Greek participants every year, about 800 fellows, as I said earlier, not only in particle physics research, but predominantly in applied physics, engineering, and computing. And I underline that because that is very much the spirit of today's meeting in those domains of work. And of course, a few hundred technical and doctoral students, again, in applied science, engineering, and computing that we have preference for. This is a very important and very key figure. This is the age distribution of these 11,500 scientific users. You can see the peak is in the mid-20s, and that peak is comprised of the more than 3,000 PhD students working with us today. So it's a very lively and a very young community which uses the research infrastructure at CERN. And very importantly, once they do graduate, a significant fraction, close to half, continue in their first careers in industry. And in industry, it is mostly in the domain of ICT that you will find the graduates which have worked at CERN. And of course, a fraction of them continue in other fields, including government organizations and also in academia or research. And I'd just like to finish by saying that we do start off educating the young students, firstly through their teachers, and also bringing in high school students to CERN and university students to participate in one of our diverse and broad programs that we have to offer here. And indeed, Greece has participated quite considerably in these education programs. Every year we have several undergraduate summer students coming from Greek universities. We have a very large number of secondary school teachers, close to 900 that have participated in our teacher programs. We've had 54 teams participating in the so-called Beamline for Schools competition, where groups of students with their teachers propose and undertake experiments in one of our research infrastructures. And we've also had close to 700 students participating in a hands-on school lab, as it's called. And this year, for the very first time, we are welcoming 22 students from Greece who are in the final year of their high school, the gymnasium. So they will be joining us here at CERN in September. And I'm happy to say that several students have been chosen from northern Greece as well. So that shows you where we are. We also welcome many citizens from across the globe in one of our visit programs. And I should say that out of 150,000 visitors that went on a guided tour of CERN a couple of years ago before the onset of the pandemic, you can see here a very significant number came from Greece. Even though the distance is perhaps not favorable to travel from Greece to CERN, nonetheless, we have more than 8,300 Greek visitors a couple of years ago. So it's a beautiful number to see. And that's where I'd like to finish. And I'd like to thank you for your attention. And I hope that today's event features highly in everyone's agenda and facilitates the closer collaboration between CERN and Greece in general, but also between CERN and Central Macedonia in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tsesmelis. All of these that you said to us are really very important. And we thank you for all this support and collaboration with all the businesses from Northern Greece. And of course, we would like to thank all the speakers so far. And we will start right now searching on how to do business with CERN. We all agree that it is a very great challenge for a business to collaborate with CERN. And what we actually wonder is if that is possible and how can we do it? Mr. Jerome Perlot, he's the advisor of international relations in CERN, and he's many times presented this procedure. Welcome, Mr. Perlot. Thank you very much for being together with us today. And we are actually wondering if this challenge is doable. We're hearing you.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me and see my presentation?
We cannot see your presentation yet. We have to share your screen first, please. Share screen and then show us your presentation.
I share screen again. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can see your presentation. Have it in slideshow presentation, please, also, so that we can do it in full screen.
It's normally in full screen now.
It's not full screen, but we can see it very well. Okay. You can proceed.
I'll try again. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry for the inconvenience. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the presentation for the procurement rules at CERN. The presentation is divided in four. The presentation is divided in four sections. A brief introduction about CERN. I will not spend too much time on this since all has been already said by Professor Tsesmelis. Then I'll say a few words about the procurement at CERN, the procurement service, the principles, the procedures to award the contracts. Then I'll say a few words about the procurement website where you can get all the informations. And then I will conclude the presentation with a few words about the figures for CERN. CERN is an intergovernmental organization established in 1953, founded in 1954. It is governed by public international law. So CERN is therefore entitled to establish its own internal rules necessary for its proper functioning. This explains why we have our own rule under which we purchase equipment and services at CERN. This slide has already been presented. I'm going to insist on the fact that the annual budget of CERN is 1.2 billion Swiss francs. This is very important when we will calculate the industrial return coefficient. The budget comes from the contribution of all the different member states and associate member states. You can see that Germany here is our main contributor, followed by United Kingdom, France, and Italy. And you can also see here that Greece is contributing to the CERN budget with an amount of 12.2 million Swiss francs, which represent 1.02% of the annual CERN budget. This percentage of the total budget is very important, because in the next slide you will see that we use this percentage to calculate the ratio for the industrial return. So what do we buy at CERN? Basically, we buy all recurrent supplies and services, as well as accelerator technologies required for consolidation project, as well as new developments. So we buy everything that is needed to run CERN on a daily basis, from office supplies to particle detectors. In terms of technologies, we buy a lot of civil engineering. We are constantly expanding the laboratory, so we are building new roads, new buildings, new workshops, new offices. So we place a lot of civil engineering contract. We place a lot of contract for cooling and ventilation, not only for the experiment and the magnets, but only for the buildings and the caverns and the tunnels. It can be maintenance contract or installation project. Electrical engineering, CERN has the most important private network in Europe. That means that we have more than 500 MVA of installed power, 200 transformer, 1,000 medium voltage cubicles, 3,000 switchboards, 25,000 circuit breakers. So as you can imagine, we need to place a lot of maintenance and supply contract to maintain such an electrical network. In terms of information technology, CERN has its own computer center and data center. So we place a lot of contract for licenses, software, hardware, computer, routers, bus bars, racks, and cooling system for IT equipments. We also buy a lot of mechanical engineering, finite element analysis, raw materials, raw equipments, spatial welding techniques, a lot of electronics and radio frequency equipments, cryogenic pumps, cryogenic equipments, vacuum vessels. We buy a lot of health and safety equipments to ensure the safety of the people intervening in the accelerator. We buy a lot of transport and handling equipment as well to bring all the components in the accelerator complex. And as I said, we buy a lot of office supplies and furniture. On top of all the supply contracts, we also place every year several contracts for services like office cleaning, green gardening, access control, catering, internal mail delivery. So as I said, we buy everything to run the organization on a daily basis. This is the procurement expenditure over the last 20 years. This line here in green represents the expenditure for the supply contracts. This line here in red represents the expenditure for the service contracts. And the brown line here at the bottom represents the expenditure for the experiment made on non-CERN budget. And as I'm sure you have guessed, here this orange line is the sum of all the expenditures. You can see that there is a peak here in 2003. It corresponds to the procurement of all the experiment and the components for the construction of the LHC. There is another peak here which corresponds to the long shutdown number 1. Long shutdown is a period during which the accelerators are stopped and our colleague from the technical departments come in the machine and perform all the upgrades and the maintenance as necessary. This third peak here corresponds to the long shutdown number 3. And this peak here, the last one, corresponds to the procurement for the high luminosity project. Unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, you can see that we have here a decrease in the lines, but this is expected to go up in 2022 for the procurement of all the equipments necessary for the long shutdown number 3. The important information on this slide is that as an average value, CERN spends more or less 500 million every year in procurement. So now a few words about the procurement group. The mission of the procurement group is to procure all supplies and services for CERN, of course meeting all requirements and at the lowest possible overall cost, while achieving a balanced industrial return for CERN member states, and also while respecting its own procurement rules. There are 6 principles governing the procurement rules. The first one is transparency and impartiality. That means that CERN awards contract in compliance with the principle of transparency and impartiality. Anytime after a contract has been placed, the company that have participated to the invitation to tender can contact CERN, the procurement group, and ask any questions about their bid. And the procurement officer in charge of the invitation to tender will be very happy to provide information such as what is the percentage difference with the winning bid, what was the strong point of the bid, what was the weak point of the bid. And we are happy to do this because we believe this will help the company to improve the way they prepare their price for the next invitation to tender they will participate in. Second principle is limited tendering. Limited tendering means that invitation to tender and price inquiries are limited to the companies established within the member states and associate member states. The third principle is objectivity and fair competition. All the documents at CERN are drafted in such a way to ensure fair competition between all the bidders. To that extent, we have set up a specification committee. It's a committee composed of experts at CERN, and the committee goes through all the documents part of the invitation to tender to make sure that they are drafted in an objective way and that they do not give an advantage to one bidder over the others. Selective tendering procedures means that at CERN, the tendering procedures does not take the form of an open invitation to tender. You have to be invited and then selected through a market survey to be able to participate to the proper invitation to tender. Confidentiality means that the whole process is confidential. We do not share the price or the technical solutions of all the bidders. We keep this confidential. And adjudication basis, it's always the lowest compliant for the supply contract and the best value for money for the service contract. When I say lowest compliant for the service contract, this is based on the FCA prices, which means without transportation costs. So how do we buy? If it's an off-the-shelf or a non-standard product, but which can be produced with existing manufacturing techniques or technologies, then CERN will draft functional specifications. That means that we will explain the functionalities, the characteristics of the equipment that we'd like to buy, and we will leave the bidder the freedom to define the technical solution, of course, provided that he meets the specification in all points. On the other hand, if it's a non-standard product for which the industry has neither the know-how nor the immediate interest in developing it for its existing market, in that case, CERN will write what we call a build-to-print technical specification. That means that we will prepare a list of parts, components, we will define a step-by-step procedure to manufacture the equipment, for example, and then the bidder will only have to quote for the procurement of the parts and then for the manufacturing process and also the testing of all the parts that have been produced. When it's a build-to-print specification, CERN will always ask for prototypes and pre-series for validation before launching the full series production. There are 3 types of inquiries at CERN. The first 2 ones are called price inquiries. DO stands for demande d'offre in French. So for everything that is below 200,000 Swiss francs, it's considered as a price inquiry. For everything above 200,000 Swiss francs, we call it invitation to tender, and you will see that the procedure is a bit more complicated and longer. So for the price inquiries below 10,000 Swiss francs, it's quite simple. The technical officer normally manages the price inquiries. That means that he writes a brief technical specification and asks for 3 bids and then place the purchase order to the lowest compliant bidder. In that case, the role of the procurement group is only to make sure that the purchase order has been placed with the lowest compliant bidder, and of course that the 3 quotation refers to the same technical specification. For the price inquiries between 10,000 and 200,000, it's a bit different. The procurement group is in charge of the price inquiry. So the technical officer will prepare the technical specification, the procurement officer will prepare the tender form, will prepare a list of companies that will be selected from our supplier database, and then all the documents will be dispatched. The companies will have 3 weeks to upload their bid in our IT system. And of course, then we start with the opening, and the purchase order will be made to the lowest compliant bidder. As of 50,000, all the price inquiries will be sent for information to the ILO. ILO stands for Industrial Liaison Officer, and I'll come to that in the next slide. And then for what we call the invitation to tender, so everything above 200,000 Swiss francs, we start with a startup meeting. This is an internal meeting where the procurement officer, the technical officer, and all the stakeholders of the project will sit together and will decide the strategy of the invitation to tender. It will be, for example, do we decide to split the contract in 2 contracts? Do we provide the contractor with the raw material, or do we want him to procure the raw material? Do we decide to go for stamping, machining, fine blanking, or any kind of details like this are discussed during the startup meeting. When the technical department and the procurement group agrees, then we will start with the announcement, and we put on our shopping list the forthcoming requirements. I will show you on the shopping list how it looks like. Then we will start a phase 1, which is called the market survey. So it's a technical description, 3 or 4 pages, explaining roughly what we need, plus a qualification questionnaire to explain to the company what kind of equipments they need to have in order to be able to participate to the invitation to tender. The documents are sent to the specification committee. As I said before, specification committee go through all the documents and make sure that they are drafted in an objective way. And then we dispatch the market survey documents to all the firms that have been identified in our supplier database, but also to the firms that have declared their interest for that market survey. I'll show you how to do this in the slides concerning the shopping list. Then we will, the outcome of the phase 1 of the market survey will be a list of companies that will be qualified to receive the invitation to tenders. The companies that will not be qualified to receive the invitation to tender will receive an official email explaining the reasons as to why they were not qualified. Then the phase 2 will start. Phase 2 is the invitation to tender. The tender form will be prepared by the technical officer, as well as by the procurement officer, as well as all the legal documents. And then the technical officer will prepare the technical specification, all the annexes and the drawings, for example. Again, the set of documents is sent to the specification committee that reviews the document and then give the green lights. Then we dispatch the documents to the company that have been qualified through phase 1. And the first 3 weeks are called the clarification periods. During the first 3 weeks, the company can ask any questions, and then CERN procurement officer will neutralize the question and then reply to all the companies that have received the IT documents. The reason is that we want the companies to have the same level of information to be able to prepare their bid. And the question will be neutralized so that the company asking the question cannot be identified by the other companies. As required, we can also organize a bidders conference, either through a video conference or a visit on site. And then after the submission deadline, normally 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks, depending on the complexity, the bidder will have to upload their bid on our e-tendering application. And then we will start the phase 3, which is the opening and the evaluation of the bid. So the procurement officer, jointly with the technical officer, will go through the offer, will perform a recalculation on the unit prices, will make sure that all the tests or documents has been provided, and then ask any clarification as necessary. And then we will have a ranking. And based on this ranking, we will see if we have to apply the alignment rule or not. What is the alignment rule? The alignment rule is an internal rule that CERN has set out to improve the balance, or to seek for a balance between the industrial return. So the alignment rule is a rule that says that a bidder offering goods originating in a poorly balanced member state is allowed to align its price to the lowest bidder and thereby be awarded the contract. So by stating this alignment rule, I'm introducing two new definitions, the country of origin and the poorly balanced member state. So the country of origin for a service contract is where the bidder is established. If 40% of the bid comes from a company established in a poorly balanced country, then the entire bid is considered as originating in a poorly balanced member state. For supplies contract, and this is what is more interesting for us today, for supply contract, the country of origin is the country where the supply has been manufactured, or where the last major transformation will happen. If 60% of the total amount of the bid comes from a poorly balanced member state, then the entire bid is considered as originating in a poorly balanced member state. Now, to understand this definition of poorly well-balanced member states, CERN has put in place a formula, and this will give you the industrial return coefficient. So it's a ratio between a member state's percentage share of the value of all the supply contracts and that member state's percentage contribution to the CERN budget over the same period of time. So if the percentage share of the supply contract and this ratio with the contribution to the annual CERN budget is exceeding the value of 1, then the country is the member state is considered as well balanced. If it's below 1 and between 0.4 and 1, it's considered as poorly balanced, and below 0.4, it's considered as very poorly balanced. So poorly and very poorly balanced member states can benefit from the alignment rule. So again, to come back on the alignment rule, it says that under certain condition, a bidder offering goods originating in a poorly balanced member state is allowed to align its price. Those conditions are: it must be a supply contract adjudicated on the lowest compliant basis. The amount must exceed the value of 100,000 Swiss francs, and then the price difference shall not exceed 20%. So as an example, if we have an offer from a company A originating in Switzerland, for example, Switzerland being well balanced, and this offer is of an amount of 1 million, and then we have an offer from a company B offering goods originating in Greece for 1.2 million, for example, we will contact the company B and ask them if the company can align its price to the 1 million. And if they are willing to do so, then they will be awarded the contract, and we will then contact the company A and tell them that they will be ranked number 2 because of this alignment rule. This is for information, the member state balancing for the coming year. So it's always between the 1st of March until the 28th of February next year. As you can see, Greece here is poorly balanced. That doesn't mean that the industrial return coefficient is bad. It just means that the industrial return coefficient is below 1. And this is why we are here for, because we'd like to see Greece moving to the column on the left. This is it for the procurement group. And now I'm going to take you through the procurement website. All the information that I'm giving you now are public information, and they are on our website. It's very simple. It's www.cern.ch. Then you will access the CERN webpage. If you go all the way to the bottom, there is a link called Doing Business with CERN, and if you click on that link, you will be directed to the procurement webpage. If you go down on the procurement webpage, you will have a couple of icons here, and I was mentioning the shopping list earlier in this presentation. If you click here on the business opportunities at CERN, then you will have access to the shopping list. It's quite easy. This is the date of the publication. We give you the type of contract. If it's a supply or a service contract, then we give you a unique reference number. This is very important to remind this reference number in every communication with CERN, because that's the only way we have to identify and to make sure that we are talking about the same tendering procedures. Then we have here the activity code, a brief description. We give you our own estimation of the contract. A stands for a contract below 750,000. B is between 750 and 5 million. C, it's between 5 and 10 million. And D is exceeding 10 million Swiss francs. There is the estimated schedule for the market survey, estimated schedule for the invitation to tender. And here you even have the contact details of the procurement officer and the technical officer. If we provide you with the contact details of the procurement officer and the technical officer, it's because we very much encourage you to contact them for any question. It's important that as of the beginning you understand if this is interesting for you or not to participate in. There is also a supplier portal. We encourage you to register your company in the supplier database. It takes only 5 minutes, and it's very important because the first step when we start a new tendering procedure is to go in the supplier database, select the appropriate procurement codes, and see what kind of company we have in our database. If you are not in our database, we don't know you. So this is how it looks like. It really takes 5 minutes. You have to insert the details, information of your company, address, contact, select the procurement codes. You will be provided a table with the procurement codes, and it's very important that you select as accurately as possible the procurement codes corresponding to the activity of your company. And then if you have any difficulties in registering, normally there are none, but there is also an email address here, supplier DB support, and you send an email and that person will call you back and will make the registering procedure step by step together with you. Another important point on the website, if you go on contact, you see who to contact at CERN and who to contact in your country. At CERN, for any information, you have the list of all the procurement officer, the language spoken, email, phone number. Again, this is not for a nice web page that we are providing you with this kind of details. It's because for any question, don't be shy, just contact them. This is their job. They have to reply to your question. We also have the technical contact details. That means that for every equipment at CERN, CERN has appointed a technical responsible, and then you have access to the list of equipment and technical responsible. Those people here in the right-hand column know they are technical responsible, so they are used to receive questions, and then they will reply to any question, any technical question you may have. Also, contact for Greece. I mentioned previously in my slide the industrial liaison officer. This is a very important person because his role is to facilitate the flow of communication between CERN and suppliers, to raise awareness, to increase competition, and for any question or any help you may need in preparing your offer, the ILO is there to help. So for Greece, we have two ILOs. We have Dr. Nick Mantos and we have Professor Funtas. We have regular contact with them. We know them very well. So if there is anything, do not hesitate to contact them or contact us directly. In any way, we will find a way to help if we can. Again, for any question you may have, there is this generic email address, procurement.services@cern.ch. Please send any question, and the person behind this email address will make sure that you get an answer on your question. So this was it for the procurement website. Now to conclude the presentation, I've consumed my 30 minutes, so I'm going to speed up. Procurement figures for Greece. This is few information about the supplier database. We only have 64 Greek companies in our supplier database. This is not enough. For some countries, we have several hundreds companies, and here we only have 64, which really is not enough. We have 33 active contracts with Greek companies. 3 new contracts has been awarded in 2020, and this is the number of Greek companies that has been contacted in the various tendering process. So this is the industrial return for Greece. You see that it was really low in 2015, 2016. Then in 2018, Nick Mantos came with Professor Funtas, and we have had several roadshow and events with Greek companies, and we managed to connect with the Greek industry. So we really did a good job, and then the industrial return has sourced. And then in 2020, everything was slowed down due to the COVID pandemic. This is another way of calculating the industrial return. So you have the country contribution, you have the annual CERN budget, you have the ratio, which will be the denominator of the fraction. And again, here you have all the supply contracts, and then you have the supply for Greece. If you make the ratio between this and this, you will have another percentage, which will be the numerator of the fraction, and numerator on the denominator will give you the industrial return coefficient. This is provided for information so that you can recalculate the industrial coefficient if you would like to. This is the last slide. Those are the top Greek suppliers over the last 2 years. So SafeDoor, for example, we buy a lot of compartmenting and doors for the safety of the accelerator. We have Electromech, we have Eurotrade. I have circled them in red because I'm going to say a few words about the experience with Eurotrade after. Then we have the national technical universities. Lunaros developed some website for us. Prisma Electronics, Rentron is doing some electrotechnical for us. In general, the quality is extremely good. I've put this example in red because this is the very good example of a company that we didn't know. And a couple of years ago, when a Greek delegation of company came to CERN, I was still in the procurement group at that time. I personally met with one of the representatives of the company, and I was interested in their product, and I knew that some invitation to tender and price inquiries were coming along, and then I started discussing with the representative, and actually he showed me in his catalog that he could do much more that he was presenting at CERN. And then by going through the catalog with him, we identified several invitations to tender where he might be interested in, and it resulted in the company winning 4 or 5 invitations to tender in line. And the management of the contract was really very professional. And the quality, I mean, we receive high-end quality from that company. So this is really a success story that started in a corner on a table at CERN just when they visited us and we started discussing. So this was my last slide, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierlot. It was a very interesting presentation indeed. And let's proceed right now, ladies and gentlemen. A great offer of the organization is, of course, knowledge transfer that helps businesses to find solutions in serious issues and, of course, to innovate. That's the most important thing. We have with us the group leader of knowledge transfer, Mr. Giovanni Anelli, who is going to present to us the action. Thank you very much for being here with us, Mr. Anelli. We hear your presentation.
Thank you. Can you see my slides, and do you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your slides. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's a privilege for me to be here, and it's a great opportunity to explain to all the companies listening another way of doing business with CERN. So I'll start to put this in the context of the CERN's mission. So we already heard about the CERN mission. We have the first pillar, which is the obvious one, is the science, the most important one. But luckily for the KT group and for our activity, to fulfill our mission, we need constantly to develop new technologies. Every time we build a new accelerator, new detector, we encounter technological challenges that are new to us and to the world. And this has pushed us and pushes us constantly to innovate. And of course, we want to make sure that this innovation is available to others as well. But also, if we think at the way of CERN, of the way of working of CERN, which is through collaborations also with another part of the mission is training a lot of people. There is an element of knowledge transfer in all these aspects of the mission of the organization, which is very important and should not be forgotten. But I will focus the rest of my presentation primarily on this technological aspect. So the mission of the KT Group within the mission of CERN is really to maximize another form of return for our member states. So what we want is to maximize the transfer of knowledge and technology for the benefits of society at large. But this, we know, will happen primarily through member states' industry. Industry is a very important component for knowledge transfer. There is no real successful case of technology transfer which we didn't have an industrial partner involved. And then, of course, in the group, we focus primarily our effort in doing this together with companies from the member states. Another part of the mission of the KT Group is to help CERN promoting its image as a center of excellence for technology of innovation. The CERN has a very strong brand, but I would say a lot of people still don't know that what we do goes much beyond fundamental physics. And then the third point, which is also becoming more and more important, is to help CERN demonstrating the impact of the investments that are made in fundamental research. From our point of view, of course, investments in applied research are extremely important, but the innovation which is generated by investment in fundamental research is something which has proven to be really breakthrough innovation over the last decades. So what do we do at CERN together with industry and the member states is really we look at all the innovation which is generated primarily in the three technological pillars of the organization, which have already been mentioned by Emmanuel: accelerators, detectors, and computing. And we look at how those technologies, which are generated in the framework of those three areas, can be used in totally different fields than high energy physics, like, for example, medical and biomedical technologies, aerospace, cultural heritage, and many more. Emmanuel gave a few examples. I will give a few more later. Now, technology transfer does not happen if we don't have a proper ecosystem in place. And what we have been doing at CERN over the years is to develop such an ecosystem, and this includes a number of ingredients that you can find on this slide. I will not have time to go into all the details, but I'd like to mention a few. Well, first of all, at the bottom here, you see intellectual property management. So this, I would say, is the bread and butter of our activity. We manage the intellectual property organization, and we make it available to others through ad hoc agreements, like R&D collaborations or license, service, and consultancy agreements. We manage the patent portfolio organization. But we also have other tools, which are open source tools, which are extremely interesting tools for technology transfer. The mission of our group is not to make money with the CERN technologies, is to make sure that other people use them. And that's why we have, whenever a technology can be licensed with an open source tool, we will use it. And we have developed at CERN our own open hardware license, which is one of the first developed in the world, and which is used by us and by many others. We have some seed funding mechanisms for the CERN personnel. It's very rare that the technology that we develop for our own needs is ready to use for other applications. And of course, we try to make this adaptation with industry, but when it's too early to attract the interest of companies, then we have our own seed fund mechanism, which allow to finance some projects and the aim of those projects is to take the technologies we have developed and develop them further in the direction of an application. We have a number of items on supporting CERN personnel in the process of doing technology transfer, because I always say it's not the KT group of CERN doing technology transfer, it is our scientists, and we have to support them in this process. And then there is something on entrepreneurship that I like to focus on. We also want to help startups. And we have entered into a number of agreements with partners in the member states. Today in Greece, our main actor is at Patra Science Park, but is just a rotation inside the country of who is the leading actor. Of course, we still work with all other key stakeholders in the country. Here in this slide, I show some of the names of the startups that have benefited from CERN technology, and you see the one in Greece, which is FIC Engineering, is mentioned here. How to collaborate with CERN. So if you have to retain one slide from my presentation, I'm talking to the companies listening, is that there are basically 4 ways of working. One is, which might not be relevant so much for the companies listening, but is start a company based on CERN technology know-how. But if you are a small company, if you are a startup, or you already exist, you can still work with us and investigate the route of entering one of our bigs. And then we have service and consultancy agreements. So this is typically for companies who don't really need the CERN technology, but they need some form of CERN services or consultancy. To give an example, we have some facilities at CERN which are rather unique. We have irradiation facilities, for example, when you can irradiate a full satellite, very large objects. Those are things which are difficult to find in our member states, and we are happy to provide this kind of services. Or another example might be to make some very precise measurements at very high magnetic fields at low temperatures or things like this. We master those techniques at CERN, and they are not so commonly available in the member states. And then consultancy, some companies get in touch simply because they know that we have a lot of expertise in a number of technological areas, and they just want to spend some time with our scientists to share their challenges and to see whether we can help them solving the problems. Then there is licensing. So this is typically when we have a very specific CERN technology which is developed already, which can be used in other fields, and companies want to have the permission to use it and some support in using it, and this goes to a license agreement. And then we have R&D collaboration, which is also a very interesting chapter. As I mentioned, it is rare that our technologies are ready to use for the companies, but we are very eager in entering in partnership with companies to together develop a new product or service which is based on our technologies, but which needs some adaptation. And this goes through R&D collaborations. You find a lot of information on our website, and I've put the links on the slide. I'd like to give some examples. Let me start with what happened last year during the pandemic. So you can imagine the situation. In March last year, CERN was basically shut down. All the scientists were at home. And for people like me doing mostly an administrative job, it was still possible to continue as before. But we have a lot of people who could not enter the site anymore, work with the detectors, and they were very eager in putting their knowledge and their skills to the service of society at large to try to help fighting the pandemic. So there were many initiatives, and CERN has set up a task force to handle all of these. And I like to show 4 examples of something which came out. Some of our scientists working on the gas systems or detectors have developed a high-energy ventilator. You might remember that at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a shortage of ventilators. And we have developed our own, and together we are working actively in understanding how this can be used by others. And we have recently licensed this technology for free, of course, to the University of Athens, which is going to take it and improve it and help the distribution across the country, hopefully. We have worked with one of our startups to develop effective contact tracing system that we use at CERN today. We worked a lot on a number of personal protective equipment like face shields and masks, and all the designs that we made them available on the CERN Open Hardware license. Anyone can get them and make their own screens and shields, etc. And then we also have a number of interesting projects on data analysis and simulation in trying to understand how we can better study these, how the virus spreads. So those were some examples. I'd like to mention a couple of more examples. This is a technology which has already been mentioned by Emmanuel. Every year there is something new, a new improvement. One of these technologies called Medipix is used in many different fields. We have a collaboration with NASA to make a dosimeter for astronauts. We have a company in the Netherlands using it in X-ray diffractometers for material analysis. There are many, many applications. One of the best is medical. This technology is used to make a very high performance CT scanner. And you can see a picture here. Not a medical doctor, but when I I trust my colleagues and the medical doctors to say is that the quality of the images that we can obtain with this technology is radically better than what is already available in the market. The same technology can also be used in art analysis. There is a spin-off which is using the technology to make X-rays of paintings, and Medipix has been instrumental in attributing a painting to Raffaello. And there are so many more examples I like to give, but I don't have time, so I like to refer you to our website where you can download a lot of material. We have last year made 2 new brochures. One, Katie highlights, is a snapshot of all the new projects and things that we did in 2020. And we also made it last year a dedicated brochure on all applications in aerospace. And as I said, on our website, the website is kt.cern, you can find many more examples and information about what we do and contacts. So please, if you have some ideas on how you could work with us, don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anelli, for this great presentation. And now let's proceed. Ladies and gentlemen, from now on, we continue to the second part of the conference. Προχωράμε στο δεύτερο μέρος του συνεδρίου, όπου θα παρακολουθήσουμε ένα πολύ μεγάλο παράδειγμα από την προηγούμενη επιχειρηματική αποστολή στο CERN το 2019, το 2020. Όπως γνωρίζετε, δεν πραγματοποιήθηκε η αποστολή στο CERN λόγω της πανδημίας. Έχουμε να παρουσιάσουμε λοιπόν ένα πολύ επιτυχημένο παράδειγμα εμπορικής συνεργασίας. Η Eurotrade, ένα μέλος της επιχειρηματικής αποστολής, τόλμησε και παρουσίασε τις λύσεις της στο CERN και μέσα στους επόμενους 9 μήνες είχε ήδη συνάψει την πρώτη της σύμβαση με τον οργανισμό. Ο κύριος Παύλος Καριώτης παρουσιάζει την επιτυχημένη συνεργασία αυτή σε ένα βιντεοσκοπημένο μήνυμα, το οποίο θα δούμε αμέσως τώρα.
Γεια σας. Ονομάζομαι Παύλος Καριώτης και ασχολούμαι με την ανάπτυξη δικτύου για την ευρωεμπορική ΑΒΕ. Είχα την τύχη να συμμετάσχω σε μια αποστολή που οργάνωσε η Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας σε συνεργασία με την Τεχνόπολη στο CERN. Θα ήθελα να τους ευχαριστήσω θερμά για αυτή την ευκαιρία, γιατί χάρη σε αυτή την αποστολή αποκτήσαμε ένα νέο πελάτη, με τον οποίο συμπορευόμαστε εδώ και 2 χρόνια τώρα. Το CERN είναι ένας αξιόπιστος πελάτης, είναι καλοπληρωτής και ποτέ δεν αθετεί αυτά που συμφώνησε με τον προμηθευτή του. Αυτή τη συμπεριφορά απαιτεί και από τον κάθε προμηθευτή. Η συνεργασία με τους μηχανικούς του CERN ήταν πάντα άψογη. Εξ αρχής δημιουργήσαμε μια σχέση εμπιστοσύνης και από τις 2 πλευρές. Και τα πράγματα πήγαν πολύ καλά μέχρι σήμερα. Αυτά είχα να πω. Ελπίζω αυτές οι πληροφορίες να βοήθησαν. Καλές δουλειές σε όλους.
Στη συνέχεια, οι 2 μεγάλοι πυλώνες υποστήριξης της επιχειρηματικότητας, ΣΕΒΕ και ΣΒΕ, με μέλη δεκάδες δυναμικές επιχειρήσεις στο ενεργητικό τους και οι 2 μεγάλοι αυτοί πυλώνες. Κοντά μας έχουμε τον κύριο Γιώργο Κωνσταντόπουλο, πρόεδρο του ΣΕΒΕ. Together with us, we have Dr. George Konstantopoulos, President of SEVE, Greek Exporters Association. Κύριε Κωνσταντόπουλε, ο λόγος εσάς.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ, αγαπητοί κύριοι Περιφερειάρχα, αξιότιμοι συνομιλητές, αγαπητοί ακροατές. Καλησπέρα και από μένα και σας ευχαριστώ θερμά για την πρόσκληση. Αρχικά θα ήθελα να συγχαρώ την Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας, την Τεχνόπολη Θεσσαλονίκης και το CERN, τον Ευρωπαϊκό Οργανισμό Πυρηνικών Ερευνών, για το σημερινό συνέδριο. Η συνεργασία αποτελεί την απαρχή όλων των μεγάλων επιτευγμάτων και στην ιδιαίτερη εποχή που ζούμε, αυτό έχει ακόμη μεγαλύτερη σημασία. Σήμερα εκπροσωπώ περισσότερες από 750 εξαγωγικές επιχειρήσεις σε όλη τη χώρα, δηλαδή πάνω από το 50% του συνόλου των ελληνικών εξαγωγών. Ουσιαστικά πρόκειται για τις πιο δυναμικές και ανταγωνιστικές επιχειρήσεις που καθορίζουν και το μέλλον της χώρας. Αυτές οι επιχειρήσεις θέλουν έναν ισχυρό σύμμαχο, όπως είναι το CERN, χρειάζονται τεχνολογική υποστήριξη και θέλουν να ενσωματώσουν νέα τεχνολογικά εργαλεία. Ο ψηφιακός μετασχηματισμός των επιχειρήσεων είναι γεγονός πως ξεκινάει από εδώ. Παράλληλα, θα ήθελα να αναφερθώ στο έντονο ενδιαφέρον που έχουν δείξει οι επιχειρήσεις μέλη μας που ανήκουν σε κλάδους έντασης τεχνολογίας και όχι μόνο, οι οποίες επιθυμούν να συνεργαστούν με το CERN και θέλουν να ενημερωθούν για τις διαδικασίες προμηθειών που ακολουθεί και τους διαγωνισμούς. Όλοι εμείς εξαγωγείς θέλουμε επιφανείς και αναγνωρίσιμους συνεργάτες και πόσο μάλλον φορείς όπως το CERN, το οποίο πρωταγωνιστεί διεθνώς στην καινοτομία και έρευνα. Θέλουμε να αξιοποιήσουμε το επιστημονικό έργο που παράγεται, να ενσωματώσουμε τις καινοτομίες και να υιοθετήσουμε τις νέες τεχνολογίες που θα ανεβάσουν τις επιχειρήσεις μας πολλά επίπεδα, ώστε να μπορέσουμε και εμείς να συμβάλλουμε στην ενίσχυση της απασχόλησης και στην ανάπτυξη της ελληνικής οικονομίας εν γέννη. Ας μην ξεχνάμε ότι η πρόοδος τεχνολογίας ενισχύει την οικονομική και κυρίως την κοινωνική συνοχή. Άλλωστε, ένας από τους σημαντικότερους στρατηγικούς στόχους που έχει ο ΣΕΒΕ είναι να λειτουργήσει ως κεντρικός πυλώνας στον τριπλό έλικα της καινοτομίας. Προσβλέπουμε σε μια αγαστή συνεργασία με αφίδωμα ωφέλη και εμείς από την πλευρά μας, ως ο μεγαλύτερος φορέας εξωστρέφειας στη χώρα, θα κάνουμε ό,τι περνάει από το χέρι μας για να γίνει αυτό πραγματικότητα. Πιστεύουμε στους Έλληνες ερευνητές, όπως πιστεύουμε και στις επιχειρήσεις μας. Γι' αυτό σήμερα διερευνούμε καινοτόμα μοντέλα συνεργασίας. Ας μην ξεχνάμε ότι η Ελλάδα ήταν από τα ιδρυτικά μέλη του CERN. Οι Έλληνες ερευνητές που εργάζονται εκεί και συμμετέχουν στα ερευνητικά προγράμματα είναι εκατοντάδες, με αποτέλεσμα να υπάρχει μια ισχυρή διαχρονικά συνεργασία. Οι επιτυχημένες αποστολές που πραγματοποιήσαμε το 2019 στη Γενέβη συνεχίζονται σήμερα εδώ και θα συνεχιστούν και στο μέλλον. Η συνεργασία αποδίδει καρπούς. Θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω για ακόμη μια φορά τους διοργανωτές του συνεδρίου με την ευχή επιχειρήσεις της Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας να αναπτύξουν συνέργειες με το CERN και να αφομοιώσουν τεχνογνωσία και τεχνολογία και αντίστοιχα το CERN να βρει μακροχρόνιους συμμάχους στην Κεντρική Μακεδονία. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ για την προσοχή σας και ευελπιστώ σε μια μελλοντική συνεργασία. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Κύριε Κωνσταντόπουλε, ευχαριστούμε και εμείς πάρα πολύ. Dr. Konstantopoulos, we thank you very much for your participation. And we also, Dr. Christos Georgiou, the General Director INSBE, is together here with us, and he honors us with his presence. Welcome. Καλώς ήρθατε, κύριε Γεωργίου. Σας ακούμε, παρακαλώ.
Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ, κυρία Σιράκη. Ευχαριστώ και εγώ με τη σειρά μου τους διοργανωτές, την Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας και την Τεχνόπολη, για την πρόσκλησή τους να βρισκόμαστε σήμερα εδώ. Όπως ξέρετε, ο ΣΒΕ από την πρώτη στιγμή αγκάλιασε τη συγκεκριμένη πρωτοβουλία, την υποστήριξε και θα την υποστηρίζει και επικοινωνιακά, αλλά και με κάθε προσπάθεια που μπορεί να κάνει, τόσο ώστε τα μέλη του να επωφεληθούν συνάπτοντας σημαντικές συνεργασίες με το CERN. Θέλω να πω ότι η πρωτοβουλία αυτή είναι σημαντική, διότι πραγματικά συμβάλλει στην ενίσχυση της εξωστρέφειας των τοπικών επιχειρήσεων και όχι μόνο φυσικά, και θα έλεγα συμβάλλει στην εξωστρέφεια των υγιών επιχειρήσεων της περιοχής, οι οποίες μπορούν πραγματικά να συνάψουν συνεργασίες με ένα τόσο σημαντικό οργανισμό παγκόσμιας εμβέλειας όπως είναι το CERN. Θεωρώ ότι δεν έχουμε επιχειρήσεις οι οποίες έχουν να ζηλέψουν κάτι από τους διεθνείς τους ανταγωνιστές, άρα το βήμα αυτό που μου δίνεται αυτή τη στιγμή μπορώ να το χρησιμοποιήσω απλώς και μόνο για να πω ότι προτρέπω τις επιχειρήσεις να τολμήσουν τη συνεργασία για να υποφεληθούν από αυτή τη συνεργασία με το CERN και απλώς σημειώνοντας ένα νούμερο, το οποίο ανέφερε στην πολύ ωραία παρουσίασή του ο κύριος Περλό, μίλησε για μέχρι στιγμής 64, αν δεν έκανα λάθος, νομίζω ότι δεν έκανα λάθος, 64 ελληνικές επιχειρήσεις που βρίσκονται στη λίστα των προμηθευτών του CERN. Εάν συνδυάσω την πολύ θετική εμπειρία από το βίντεο του κυρίου Καριώτη με το νούμερο του κυρίου Περλό, θα μου επιτρέψετε να προτείνω να βάλουμε ένα στόχο ως το τέλος του χρόνου οι 64 συνεργασίες να γίνουν 100. Θα είναι ένα πολύ μεγάλο κέρδος και για την Περιφέρεια Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας συνολικά και για το οικονομικό σύστημα και το παραγωγικό σύστημα της περιοχής. Με αυτές τις σκέψεις ολοκληρώνω την παρέμβαση μου, τη σύντομη παρέμβαση μου αυτή, ευχαριστώντας και πάλι τους διοργανωτές, ευχόμενος κάθε επιτυχία στη σύναψη συνεργασιών, οι οποίες νομίζω ότι θα είναι επωφελείς και για τις δύο πλευρές. Ευχαριστώ πολύ που με ακούσατε.
Σας ευχαριστούμε και εμείς αντίστοιχα, κύριε Γεωργίου, για την συμμετοχή σας. Και φυσικά, όπως είπαμε στην αρχή, ο σημαντικός στόχος της συγκεκριμένης εκδήλωσης είναι να μπορέσουν να παρουσιάσουν οι εταιρείες τις επιχειρήσεις τους και το αντικείμενο τους, τις δυνατότητές τους στο CERN. Και έχουμε συγκεντρώσει από αρκετές εταιρείες υλικό, βιντεοσκοπημένο, όπου παρουσιάζουν μέσα σε λίγα λεπτά η καθεμία τα project τους και το κύριο θέμα των επιχείρησεών τους. Θα ήθελα πάρα πολύ να το δούμε και να το παρακολουθήσουν και στο CERN οι εκλεκτοί καλεσμένοι που έχουμε σήμερα, ώστε να δείξουν ενδιαφέρον και να μπορέσουν να ξεκινήσει έτσι η επικοινωνία μεταξύ των επιχειρήσεων της Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας και του CERN. Για να δούμε τα βίντεο.
and turn these challenges into fruitful business opportunities by access new markets, continuously improve customer satisfaction, enhance operational performance, and embrace digital solutions. And most important, by keeping their promises to their customers. Our role is to enable our customers realize these opportunities because we are dedicated to the progress of people and organizations. Our mission is to improve our customers' performance by driving value chains through people, expertise, and technology. With over 78,000 employees at 1,400 locations in over 100 countries, the Kuehne+Nagel Group is one of the world's leading logistics companies. Its strong market position lies in sea and air logistics, followed by road and contract logistics, with a clear focus on integrated logistics solutions and an experience of over 125 years. Company in Greece was established in 1946 and has by now 482 logistics specialists in 4 locations, 1 in Sínδος Thessaloniki and 3 in Athens, with warehouses in Aspropyrgos and Magoula and our head office in Kalithea. Here you can see our volumes of the year 2020 at a glance by business field. With our industry specialists, we develop tailor-made solutions for each industry your company belongs to, whether it's airspace, automotive, consumer, high-tech, industrials and chemicals, over to pharma and healthcare. With our end-to-end value chain offerings, more than 400,000 customers trust us to manage their logistics with sustainable solutions, since we aim to become carbon dioxide neutral by 2030 with our carbon dioxide neutral program. Through our commitment, we inspire, empower, and deliver service excellence. Thank you for your attention and waiting for your kind requests.
Welcome to Polyplast, one of the most dynamic industries of plastics pipes and fittings. For over 40 years, Polyplast has been producing plastic pipes and fittings for irrigation and has expanded into the sectors of water supply, heating, and protection of fiber optic cables. Polyplast product range exceeds 4,000 codes, and its production capacity reaches 10,000 tons annually. From the main facilities in Thessaloniki, Polyplast implements steps that lead to continuous development while maintaining a competitive advantage, aiming always in providing to its customers complete and customized irrigation, water supply, and heating solutions for every demand. Its productive activity was initiated by the Palatiana brothers in 1980. The 3 Palatiana brothers, Andonis, Konstantinos, and Paraskevas, establish a machine shop of 50 square meters with the object of manufacturing molds for plastic fittings under the company name Palatiana Brothers OE in Evasmo, Thessaloniki. Due to the requirements of the market and the increase in production demands, the company was transferred in 1985 to the industrial area of Sínδος Thessaloniki in a 1,300 square meter facility, and the activity of producing plastic parts for irrigation systems begins. In 2008, the Palatiana brothers are awarded Entrepreneurs of the Year 2008 by Ernst & Young. The same year, they also received the National Recognition for Business Excellence by the Ministry of Development. Polyplast produces products focusing always on quality assurance and ensuring the best service and prompt satisfaction of its customers. A primary goal is to cultivate relationships of trust and mutual respect with its partners, customers, and suppliers. Polyplast supports innovation, openness, and creativity, and seeks continuous improvement in performance and development. In 1988, Palaplast decided to test their strength beyond the Greek borders and participates for the first time in the international exhibition in Bologna, Italy. Since then, the path has led to the success of exports to more than 70 countries in Europe, the Balkans, South America, and the Middle East, validating Palaplast as a dynamic and innovative Greek company. In 2000, the company proceeded in the creation of a joint venture company in Izmir, Turkey, with the name Palaplast Izmir, which in 2019 relocates to 7,000 square meters of privately owned, newly constructed facilities in the industrial area of Menemeni in Izmir. In 2005, a subsidiary company is established in Bucharest, Romania, with the name Palaplast Expert. And in 2009, a joint venture in the city of Hama, Syria, with the name Palaplast Syria. Palaplast production activity is dedicated to developing applications for the sustainable use of water. The company seeks to offer solutions for the preservation, treatment, and use of water, enhancing the protection of natural resources, energy conservation, the search and utilization of renewable energy sources, and minimizing adverse effects on the environment are values and objectives that are practiced in Palaplast, focusing on meritocracy and the employment of personnel with ethics, passion for work, enthusiasm, and integrity make the people of Palaplast a valuable asset whose contribution ensures the development and implementation of the Palaplast vision. Continual technological advancements, implementing production practices which contribute to cost reduction and prevailing in quality assurance have placed Palaplast a leader in Greece, with a continuous presence in more than 70 countries worldwide, encompassed with the pioneers of the industry.
Είδαμε τις πολύ ενδιαφέρουσες παρουσιάσεις από τις επιχειρήσεις. Κύριε Τζίκα, νομίζω πραγματικά ακούσαμε εξίσου ενδιαφέρουσες παρουσιάσεις και από τους καλεσμένους ομιλητές, τόσο από το CERN όσο και από εδώ, από την Κεντρική Μακεδονία, εκπροσώπους των φορέων. Θα θέλαμε να μας κάνετε μία σύνοψη, έτσι ώστε να μπορέσουμε να έχουμε μία συνολική εικόνα της σημερινής εκδήλωσης.
Κυρία Σιράκη, ευχαριστώ. Ευχαριστώ για τον πολύ έτσι σοβαρό συντονισμό. Αποδεικνύεται ότι είστε σχεδόν ένας άνθρωπος του κλάδου μας και ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ και τη Live Media για την πολύ σημαντική υποστήριξη όλο αυτό το διάστημα της πανδημίας κυρίως, αλλά και τα προηγούμενα χρόνια.
Σας ευχαριστούμε και εμείς αντίστοιχα.
Λοιπόν, θα ήθελα να πω ότι φάνηκε από τις... καταρχάς, θέλω να τους ευχαριστήσω όλους τους ανθρώπους του CERN. I would like to thank you all, dear friends from CERN. It's very useful to have you with us all these years, supporting us and helping us to promote your technologies in Greece. And the only thing I would like to say to all of you is that you have to know that we are committed in bridging CERN with Thessaloniki, and we are sure that in next years, Thessaloniki will be let's say, a CERN hub, not only a technology hub, but a CERN hub for promoting technologies from your part, from CERN part. Τώρα, όσον αφορά τους Έλληνες συμμετέχοντες, θα ήθελα να πω ότι θέλει πολλή δουλειά να βελτιώσουμε το ποσοστό συμμετοχής των ελληνικών επιχειρήσεων στις προμήθειες του CERN. Η Ελλάδα είναι από τα ιδρυτικά μέλη και δεν έχει καταφέρει, επειδή φταίμε εμείς ως χώρα, δεν έχει σημασία να πούμε γιατί, αλλά είναι δικό μας μειονέκτημα, να μην συμμετέχουμε στις προμήθειες του CERN σύμφωνα με το ποσοστό που μας αναλογεί. Άρα πρέπει να κάνουμε μια πολύ σημαντική δουλειά. Πρέπει αυτό που κάνει η Τεχνόπολη να το διευρύνουμε. Έχουμε μια ανοιχτή κουβέντα με τον Περιφερειάρχη, τον κύριο Τζικώστα, μέσα από το ρόλο του σαν πρόεδρος της ΕΝΑΕ, να διευρύνουμε αυτή την προσπάθεια σε όλη την Ελλάδα, όχι μόνο στην Κεντρική Μακεδονία, για να μπορέσουμε να κάνουμε αυτό που πρότεινε ο κύριος Γεωργίου και νομίζω είναι πολύ σωστό, να βάλουμε κάποιους μετρητές, κάποια KPIs κάθε χρόνο, να διευρύνουμε τη βάση των ελληνικών επιχειρήσεων που συμμετέχουν στις προμήθειες του CERN και να το μετράμε αυτό. Άρα για να το κάνουμε αυτό, έχουμε έναν πολύ σημαντικό άνθρωπο, έναν φίλο μας στο CERN, τον Μανώλη τον Δεσμελή, θα τον κουβεντιάσουμε και μαζί του, για να μπορέσουμε τα ερχόμενα χρόνια, θα έλεγα και τον Τζοβάνι τον Ανέλη, να μπορέσουμε τα ερχόμενα χρόνια να διευρύνουμε αυτή την βάση των προμηθευτών. Τώρα, για φέτος, έχουμε κουβεντιάσει με την Περιφέρεια, αυτό που δεν μπορέσαμε να κάνουμε το 2020, να κάνουμε δηλαδή μια φυσική επιχειρηματική αποστολή, η οποία θα έχει και ένα εκθεσιακό γεγονός, δηλαδή να εκθέσουμε και υπηρεσίες και προϊόντα από την Ελλάδα. Να προσπαθήσουμε λοιπόν να κάνουμε μια επιχειρηματική αποστολή, ελπίζουμε να μας το επιτρέψουν οι συνθήκες λόγω της πανδημίας, προς το τέλος του χρόνου. Αυτό είναι κάτι που θα το έχουμε ανοιχτό στην ατζέντα μας και αν μας το επιτρέψουν οι συνθήκες να κάνουμε μια επιχειρηματική αποστολή στο τέλος του χρόνου. Άρα λοιπόν, αυτό που εμείς θα θέλαμε να πούμε σαν Τεχνόπολη και θα ήθελα να πάρει το λόγο μετά και ο Μανώλης Δεσμελής να κάνει αυτό στο κλείσιμο, σε αυτόν οφείλουμε πολλά πράγματα και θα ήθελα αν ο Μανώλης είναι μαζί μας να κάνει το κλείσιμο και εμείς από τη μεριά μας σαν Τεχνόπολη να δώσουμε μια υπόσχεση ότι θα κρατήσουμε ζωντανή αυτή τη σχέση για να μπορέσουμε πραγματικά το CERN να έχει ένα hub στα Βαλκάνια, στην Νοτιοανατολική Ευρώπη και αυτό το hub να είναι στη Θεσσαλονίκη. Μανώλη, σε ευχαριστώ πολύ για την πολύ μεγάλη βοήθεια και νομίζω ότι αυτή η σχέση CERN και Θεσσαλονίκης με ενδιάμεσο την Τεχνόπολη έχει μέλλον.
Εντάξει, ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ, Τάσο. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για τη σημερινή εκδήλωση. Νομίζω θα βοηθήσει πολύ να συνεχίσουμε αυτή τη συνεργασία και την συζήτηση που έχουμε ξεκινήσει τώρα με την Περιφέρεια και με τον κύριο Τζιτζικώστα. Και ελπίζω να μπορέσουμε να έρθετε στο CERN. Θα ήθελα να πω μόνο δύο πραγματάκια. Πρώτον, έχουμε με τον κύριο Φουντά και με τον κύριο Μάνθο ετοιμάζουμε μια μεγάλη εκδήλωση, βιομηχανική εκδήλωση του χρόνου εδώ στο CERN. Ελπίζουμε αρχές του χρόνου να καταφέρουμε να έχουμε το επόμενη εκδήλωση που ονομάζεται Greece at CERN, που είναι εταιρείες, βιομηχανικές εταιρείες από όλη την Ελλάδα να έρθουν για μερικές μέρες εδώ στο CERN και να μιλήσουν με τους διάφορους επιστήμονες και μηχανικούς για να δούμε πώς μπορούμε να συνεργαστούμε. Και βέβαια θα χαρούμε πολύ αν έχουμε και εταιρείες σε αυτή την εκδήλωση από την Κεντρική Μακεδονία και επίσης μπορούμε να κάνουμε και κάτι ξεχωριστό, όπως είπαμε, με τις εταιρείες που γνωρίσαμε σήμερα στη σημερινή εκδήλωση. Θα είμαστε σε επαφή σίγουρα, ο κύριος Φουντάς και ο κύριος Μάνθος, που είναι ο αντιπρόσωπος της Ελλάδας στο CERN και ο Industrial Liaison Officer. Θα είμαστε σε επαφή να τα οργανώσουμε όλα αυτά για να μπορέσουμε να βελτιώσουμε ακόμα πιο πολύ αυτά που έχουμε ξεκινήσει με την Περιφέρεια. Και νομίζω ο στόχος που βάλαμε νωρίτερα, να έχουμε 100 εταιρείες στα database του CERN. Νομίζω μπορούμε να τα καταφέρουμε μέχρι το τέλος του χρόνου, αν συνεχίσουμε αυτή τη συζήτηση και συνεργασία. And on this note, I'd like to thank also my colleagues from CERN, Mr. Jérôme Pirlo, for the presentation on procurement. You didn't see them, but there were other people involved from CERN procurement which were following the presentation today. So they took notes, and they would also be involved in developing this initiative that we started. Of course, Mr. Giovanni Anelli, who's a very key supporter of what we're doing in Greece with the business incubation centers, and he's always available for a discussion. And I also like to thank, of course, our Director for International Relations for being with us today and for giving such a wonderful opening address, welcoming all of us to this important event.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. We thank you very much, Mr. Desmoslis, for this great honor that you have made to this event, participating. Thank you also, Mr. Tsika. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Έχουμε ολοκληρώσει το συνέδριο και κλείνοντας, θα θέλαμε να ευχαριστήσουμε όλους τους καλεσμένους ομιλητές που συμμετείχαν και δώσανε με το δικό τους τρόπο τις παρουσιάσεις τους και ευχαριστούμε φυσικά και τους συμμετέχοντες. Πριν να κλείσουμε, θα θέλαμε να τονίσουμε ότι η Τεχνόπολη ετοιμάζει λεπτομερή παρουσίαση με περισσότερες από 20 επιχειρήσεις, αναλύοντας τις λύσεις τους και τις τεχνολογίες τους. Το τεύχος αυτό θα προωθηθεί κατάλληλα στις διευθύνσεις του CERN, ώστε αυτές να τις γνωρίζουν και φυσικά να επικοινωνήσουν μαζί τους ανάλογα. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ που ήσασταν μαζί μας όλη αυτή την ώρα. Καλή συνέχεια και στο επανειδήν.